Audible is the leading provider of spoken word entertainment and audiobooks, ranging from bestsellers to celebrity memoirs, news, business, and self-development. Every month, members get 1 credit to pick any title, plus 2 Audible originals from a monthly selection, and access to daily news digests from the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, and the Washington Post, as well as guided meditation programs. Between a full-time job in IT and a full-time job in podcasting, it gets harder and harder to sit down and read the books I'm interested in. This is where Audible comes in. I can listen on my daily commute, relaxing, or while out running errands and still get in the books I've been wanting to get into. You can download titles and listen offline anytime, anywhere. The app is free and can be installed on all smartphones and tablets. Now you can try Audible risk-free with a special 30-day free trial by visiting audibletrial.com/nerdery and murdery. That's audibletrial.com/nerdery and murdery. Don't let your busy life get in the way of that great book you've been wanting to read. Go get your free trial of Audible today. This podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp. This is Geoffrey, and we've talked about many times before that I experience problems and struggles with my mental health, and really without a healthy mind, being truly happy and at peace is hard. The good news is therapy does work. It's helped for me, but what is therapy exactly? It's whatever you want it to be. Maybe you're not feeling motivated right now and would like some tools to help. Or maybe you're feeling insecure in relationships at work, or you're not dealing well with stress. Whatever you need, it's really time to stop being ashamed of normal human struggles, and it's time to start feeling better because you deserve to be happy. And now you don't have to worry about finding an in-person therapist near you to help. BetterHelp is a customized online therapy that offers video, phone, and even live chat sessions with your therapist, so you don't have to see anyone on camera if you don't want to. It's much more affordable than in-person therapy, and you can start communicating with your therapist in under 48 hours. So join the millions of people who are seeing what online therapy is really about. It's always a good time to invest in yourself because you are your greatest asset. And there's a special offer to Nerdery and Murdery listeners. You can get 10% off your first month of professional therapy at betterhelp.com/nerdery and murdery. That's betterhelp.com/nerdery and murdery. Thanks again to BetterHelp for sponsoring this podcast.
Don't ask me what you know is true. Don't have to tell you I love your precious heart. I was standing, you were there. 2 worlds collided, and they could never tear us apart.
Boom, boom, boom. Da-na-na-na. All right, welcome to episode 115 of Nerdery and Murdery.
Big 115. I'm Zig with your nerdery.
And I'm Geoffrey with your Murdery. Welcome to another week of the ups and the downs, the highs and the lows, and the good and the bad. Zig, what have you been up to?
Well, me and the kids, since Lorelai is out of town with Susie, me and the kids decided to watch a bunch of old horror movies last night. We watched They Live. It was like, oh my God, I've never seen this. They were really, really digging it. Cree was going to a concert with a friend of hers from work, the Breeders, and brought back this really great piece of vinyl. So,
oh, cool. Cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, I've been golfing as much as possible. We got a little bit of rain out earlier this week, and then I had myself a little temper tantrum on the golf course.
What, like Happy Gilmore?
Yeah, I got tired of whiffing it, and I ended up throwing my club behind me. Yeah, it was pretty bad. I was not having a good day on that. But I tell you what, when I am on target, I can boom those drives.
Nice.
When I can be on target. It just sure as hell doesn't happen on every hole.
That sounds like it's just something you need to practice at, man.
Yeah, a lot. So we'll be going golfing this afternoon. It's chilly here.
It's chilly up here.
Yeah.
Like 60 something degrees, which is everybody's like, what?
Yeah, we're 65 down here. It just summer just suddenly broke.
Yeah. It was like hot. Nah, we're done.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we've got like one day of 90s this week, and the rest is all in the 80s, and so yeah, be really, really good. Good to cool off. It's good to be out on the golf course and not sweat my balls off.
Yes, you need those.
Yeah.
Pants fit better.
Yes, I know. So glad to have some of that. So awesome. Well, this is going to be a great episode. Zig, I will let you take over on the nerdery side of the house.
Well, thank you, sir. I believe you are familiar with this particular band. We're going to talk about 3 albums by INXS.
You know, they were the first band I ever saw in concert.
That's right.
For Kick Off America. 1986, if I remember correctly, in Dallas.
They toured that album for something like 2.5, almost 3 years.
Yeah.
They were playing songs from that album on the radio for over 2 years.
Oh, for Kick, almost every song on that album hit the charts.
Yeah. I can tell you that every single song on that album played on the college radio.
Yeah.
Every single song.
Yeah.
They wouldn't play the ones that were officially released as singles. They played the other stuff, but yeah, every song on that album got played on the radio.
Kick was a great album. To this day, one of my favorites.
That's one of the albums we're going to talk about. Today we're going to talk about The Swing, Listen Like Thieves, and Kick. I'm going to state a very controversial opinion, and I realize we're going to get hate mail for it. I think Kick is a great album. I'm not arguing with that. I think Listen Like Thieves is better.
I disagree. I wholeheartedly disagree.
So let's talk about INXS. INXS is a phonetic play on INXS. It is spelled INXS. They were an Australian rock band formed by the Ferris brothers in 1977 in Sydney, New South Wales. The founding members were bassist Gary Beers. He got that name because everybody called him Gary because at one point there was another Gary in a band he was in. And they called that dude like Gary Smith, and they just called him Gary. So yeah, he took the name Gary Beers. His name is actually like Gary Edward Beards or something like that. Main composer and keyboardist Andrew Ferris, drummer John Ferris, guitarist Tim Ferris, lead singer and main lyricist Michael Hutchins, and guitarist and saxophonist Kurt Pengelly.
Unfortunately, the late Michael Hutchins.
Yes. For 20 years, INXS was fronted by Hutchins, whose magnetic stage presence made him the focal point of the band. Initially known for their new wave / pop style, the band later developed the harder pub rock style that included funk and dance elements. In 1984, INXS had their first #1 hit in Australia with Original Sin. The band achieved international success in the mid to late 80s and early 90s with the albums Listen Like Thieves, Kick, and X. And the singles What You Need You Tonight, Devil Inside, Never Tear Us Apart, Suicide Blonde, and New Sensation. What You Need and Need You Tonight were top 10 singles. They were both #1.
You know what drives me crazy, absolutely crazy, is if you hear Need You Tonight on any 80s station, that's all you hear is Need You Tonight.
Wrong.
Right. But if you go to first wave, every single time you get Need You Tonight followed by
Mediate.
Because that's which is how it's supposed to. Yeah, it's how it's supposed to be played.
Yeah. So yeah, on the album, Need You Tonight bleeds into Mediate, and that's how they used to play it on MTV. and that's really the way you should listen to it.
Right.
They won a whole lot of Australian Recording Industry Association awards, including 3 for the best groups in 1987, 89, and 1992. They were inducted into the ARIA Hall of Fame in 2001. They gigged around Australia for a long time. Michael Hutchence moved because they started this band when they were kids. Michael Hutchence moved to California for about 3 or 4 years when they were all in junior high, and came back for whatever the Australian equivalency to high school is. I don't know what they call it. It's probably something weird and Australianish. But he comes back like the equivalent of their freshman or sophomore year, and he's been living in LA for the last 3 or 4 years. And he's the new cool guy when he was just kind of this geeky kid they all knew before he left. But he'd been living in LA. So he comes back and he kind of gets them into some of the weirder, more new wave and post-punk sounds that they kind of started in the early 80s. Like I said, they started in 77. Again, they were all children. But about 1980, when they finally settle on the name INXS, they started doing pretty well. They did really well. They did really well in Australia and New Zealand. They played a little bit here. The Swing, they had a little money to make this one. That's the first album we're going to talk about. They had a little money, so they went to New York and recruited Nile Rodgers to help them record the lead single, which was Original Sin. It was recorded in New York City with Nile Rodgers and Daryl Hall on the backing vocals. I never knew that.
Yeah, I knew that.
Daryl Hall is singing backup. I think that's probably why I love that song so much, because it has a Nile Rodgers sound to it, because they traveled in September of '83 to work with Nile Rodgers at Power Station Studios, and it was the first time that they'd ever been outside of Australia. And he's laying down Original Sin, and he just calls up Daryl Hall, and Daryl Hall's like, "Oh yeah, this is a great song. Let's go ahead and do this." But he later said, Daryl Hall said, I don't know why, because they're good singers and they didn't need me, but I did it anyway. And all 4 of the singles off of that album were co-written by Michael Hutchence and Andrew Ferris. And the other album tracks were generally written, with Andrew and one of the other band members like Kirk Pangeli. But from December, INXS was working with Nick Launay, who worked with Midnight Oil in the Models at the Manor Studios in Oxfordshire to complete the rest of the album. But the 4 singles they worked on in New York City, and you can kind of hear that. The Swing, and this is a direct quote, Stephen Thomas Erlewine noted that the Swing retains the new wave pop sense and rock attack of their early albums while adding a stronger emphasis on dance rhythms. He liked the improved songwriting with more than half of the album featuring memorable hooks. Australian musicologist Ian McFarlane opined it boasted all the confident swagger and accomplishment rock hooks of a band on the cusp of international acceptance. I would agree with that. I would say the stuff they did before the Swing, it was good, but it was niche-y. I'll give you that. Everything before that was fairly niche-y. I like it, but I like niche-y music too. I like stuff that's a little off the beaten path. What was great about this period, this 1984 to let's say 1989, because again, Kick was on the radio for 2.5-3 years. So let's say like 84 to 89, where they made these 3 albums. They were at the pinnacle, and I don't think they ever got better. I'm not saying that X was bad, because I thought X was actually a pretty decent album, but it wasn't Kick, and it
No.
sure as hell wasn't Listen Like These, or even The Swing. But so with The Swing, we'll talk about that since we're already talking about going into the album. The songs were Original Sin, Melting in the Sun, I Send a Message, Dancing on the Jetty, The Swing, Johnson's Aeroplane, Love Is What I Say, Face the Change, Burn for You, in All the Voices. 10 songs.
And outside of Original Sin, the thing I don't like about this album is a lot of the songs are very similar.
Yeah. They sound a lot like some of the stuff they'd been doing before.
Right. Dancing
on the Jetty, a little less so, but it was also recorded at the same time Original Sin was.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's really similar. It's still good. And again, Original Sin, that may be my favorite song by them. I toss up. It's between that and Kiss the Dirt.
I love Don't Change.
Don't Change is great too. That's an earlier one, which was just like a pub rock sound.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and the Swing, it peaked at number 1 on the Australian Kent Music Reports album chart for 5 non-consecutive weeks from April to May of '84. It remained in the top 100 for over 100 weeks. On the New Zealand album charts, it reached number 6. Beyond its local success, the album and its predecessor entered the U.S. top 75, reaching number 52 on the Billboard 200, which is not bad. It went into the top 40 in Canada. And it did fairly well in England. Not as well as it did in Australia. Australia was gaga over these guys. In February of 2014, The Swing returned to the top 50 on the ARIA album charts with a local airing of a miniseries, INXS, Never Tear Us Apart, on the 7th network.
Yeah, I hate that I missed that movie.
I think it's out there. If it's not in the YouTube playlist, I'll get some scenes at least some scenes from it. Because I recorded, of course, I included all 3 of these albums.
Mm-hmm.
Listen Like Thieves is just one play. And I defy anybody to just listen to it and think, yeah, I'll stop it when I'm done. No, you won't. You'll listen to the whole damn thing. It's that good. But yeah, Original Sin was huge. It was kind of big over here. Dancing on the Jetty was kind of big over here, but it was more of a kind of a dancing thing. But they were really poised to do something amazing. So their next album,
real quick, I'm sorry. It looks like it's on Freevee.
It is on Freevee?
Yep.
Yeah, I think we need to check that out. I may watch that today. The Swing is only 42 minutes and 40 seconds long. There's only 10 songs on it. You will find that their albums are like that. They don't put a lot of songs on them. 10 songs, in and out, done. I think Kick is technically 11, but 2 of the songs really are one. No, it's 12. But Need You Tonight and Mediate are the same song. I'm sorry. Need You Tonight and Mediate are the same song.
Well, they're not the same song. It's just they're meant to be played together.
Yes. Yeah. So they're doing pretty well. They're touring on this, and they go in to record their next album, Listen Like These. Because they recorded in 83 into 84 on The Swing. It's October of 85. They're going in to record Listen Like Thieves. It's the 5th studio album by Australian rock band INXS, and it was released on 14th of October, 1985. It spent 2 weeks at number 1 on the Kent Music Reports in Australia. It's considered an international breakthrough album for the band. It peaked at number 11 on the United States Billboard 200. What You Need sold that record. And number 24 in Canada, and it made the top 50 in the UK. The album features the band's first number 5 single in the US, What You Need. It also won the group the Countdown Music and Video Award for Best Video. Listen Like These also marked the beginning of the group's off-and-on alliance with producer Chris Thomas. So again, The Swing, which they'd recorded and released like a year earlier, had kind of sent them around the world a little bit. They'd done pretty well. But they recorded their last album in New York and Oxfordshire. They returned to Sydney, where they worked with Chris Thomas, producing at a place called Rhinoceros Studios. Chris Thomas, famed for producing the Sex Pistols, the Pretenders, Roxy Music, and Elton John. So, he had a pretty good catalog. They recorded it over a 3-month period at that studio in Sydney, and many of the album songs were written by the songwriting duo of Hutchins and Andrew Ferris. As production came to a close to completion, Thomas told the band that the album was lacking a crucial hit single. So the band members left the studio having just a few days to come up with one last song. Chris told them, as there was still no hit, Ferris later recalled, "We left the studio that night knowing that we had one day and we had to deliver a hit." Talk about pressure. Both Hutchins and Ferris searched through the demos that Ferris had composed throughout the album's production, and out of the remaining demos, Thomas persuaded the duo to focus on one particular demo track titled Funk Song Number 13. Because the Ferris brothers, when they were working with Nile Rodgers, were like, "Hey, how do you do that little funk wicky wick 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 sound on your guitar?" And he showed them. So they'd been working on that. It was great. I thought I could listen to that groove for 10 minutes. I said, "Let's work on that groove," said Thomas. INXS spent the next 2 days working on that demo track, which would eventually turn out to be What You Need, giving the band their first top 5 single. But originally that song was called Funk Track Number 13. But it's hot. And they put it on as the first song on the album. And I want to say, I don't think they released it as a single over here. I think they just released the record. No, because I played it on the radio.
Yeah, it was released as a single.
Rolling Stone, and again, I don't put a lot of stock in Rolling Stone. They've been wrong about a lot of stuff, but I think they're correct here. The writer Putterbaugh felt the group were going for the jugular, or is it the groin? And with Thomas, they forged an unlikely union between the sonic extremism of Led Zeppelin-style crunch rock and the step-lively beat of disco, such as the album Rocks with Passion and seals the deal with the backbeat. They blackmail your feet. So yeah, they've been touring with The Swing, which was pretty big, but they wanted to get back to that sound because they really liked the way Original Sin sounded. And again, as you said, on The Swing, most of the songs kind of sound alike, except for that one. So they decided to go with something a little sonically different. So they did Listen Like These. The title track are What You Need, Listen Like Thieves, Kiss the Dirt, also known as Falling Down the Mountain, Shine Like It Does, Good Plus Bad Times, Biting Bullets, This Time, Three Sisters, Same Direction, One by One, and Red Red Sun. Tracks 1 through 7 you can just sit and listen to. Just play them out. You don't have to take any song breaks, nothing else. Just play them out. Play them just like that. Every single song, one of those songs is different enough from the last one to almost be, I don't want to say like an opera, but like a solid piece of music. It's almost like they were trying to build a concept album, but not with lyrics, with sound. Again, Kiss the Dirt may be my favorite INXS song. I waffle. What You Need, again, is great. It's got that funk sound to it. Listen Like Thieves is a rock song. Kiss the Dirt is a soul song. Shine Like It Does is kind of a party anthem. Good Plus Bad Times and Biting Bullets are kind of rocky. And This Time is a lament, but it's fast. It's beautiful. I like Three Sisters. Same Direction, One by One, and Red Red Sun. But I would say those first 7, they're just solid. What do you think about Listen Like These?
I think it's a good album. There's really only about 5 on there that I really like. Again, I think Kick is the better album because and you're about to get into it, but
yes,
I don't think that there is a bad song on Kick. I can listen to that over and over and over and over again. Every song. I can't do that on Listen Like These.
I agree with you about Kick. There isn't a bad song on that album. I think it's just I like Listen Like These a little better. But again, they were a little less polished on Listen Like These, and I like that a little bit. I like unpolished more than you do.
Mm-hmm.
Shall we say? That's what it is.
Well, again, I mean, that's why I think Kick is the better album, because there's not a bad song on it.
No, there's not a bad song on it. And it's not, and it's a little more polished than I would like. And also, too, when I say INXS they played every song on the radio, I don't mean like once or twice. Part of my problem with Kick may be just that I heard it too much. You know what I mean? Because it did. So they released The Swing in '84. They released Listen Like These in late '85. They released Kick in late '87, so they actually took about a year to make Kick. Plus, they were
then it must have been 87 or 88 that I saw the concert then.
Yeah. So they released it 12th of October 1987, and it was on the charts. They were still playing the songs on the radio pretty regularly when their next album, X, came out in 1990. Mm-hmm. No, early 1991. Yeah, so 3 years that song was on the radio, or that album was on the radio.
X is the one with Soup and Salad Bar on it.
Soup and Salad Bar. The name of the song is Suicide Blonde for our listeners, but when he sings it, it sounds like he's saying Soup and Salad Bar. Which is what we all said in the car. And, they kind of had some trouble after Kick because, The Swing was big. Listen Like Thieves was really big. Kick was like the Beatles in Hard Day's Night. They got swamped everywhere they went.
Mm-hmm.
They couldn't go to the grocery store anymore. That's how big Kick was. You have made it when you have to look like somebody else just to go chill out someplace.
Right.
You can't chill out no place. Which, it has its own effect on people. It's like, oh, hey, I want to be rich and famous. Yeah, the rich part probably. The famous part, it depends on how famous you are. There's a point where fame is really bad, and Kick kind of did this to them, especially Michael Hutchence.
Oh, yeah.
The Ferris brothers could probably hide out. Not so much Kirk Pengeli, because nobody else in the world looks like that dude. Maybe to a lesser extent, Gary Beers, but Michael Hutchence could not go to the grocery store anymore. So yeah, they have toured with Listen Like These about a year, and they get back and they decided they're going to do basically a follow up to Listen Like These on the same track. It was called Kick. It was the 6th studio by INXS, and it was released on the 12th of October 1987 through WEA in Australia, Mercury in Europe, and Atlantic Records in the United States and Canada. The album was produced by British producer Chris Thomas, recorded by David Nichols in Sydney and Paris, mixed by Bob Clearmountain and Air Studios in London. This is the band's most successful studio album. Yeah, no.
Oh,
shit.
yeah.
Yeah. I'm reading some notes. I'm like, yeah, that's an understatement. So, okay. Let's talk about the album tracks. Just like we did with Violator and Depeche Mode. Guns in the Sky. Guns in the Sky played on the indie charts. The next track, New Sensation, was a hit. Devil Inside was a hit. Need You Tonight and Mediate because again, I count those as two,
Mm-hmm.
both hits. The Loved One was played on the college radio. Wildlife played on college radio. Never Tear Us Apart played on regular radio. It was a hit. Mystify was a hit. Kick was a hit. Calling All Nations and Tiny Daggers, the last two tracks, played on the indie charts. So yeah, every song on this album got played on the radio.
Mystify. I think Mystify is my favorite song on that album.
Mystify?
Yeah.
Mystify. You know, it's got a jazzy beat to it.
I love Mystify.
Mystify me, mystify. Yeah, you know, I'm feeling it right now. So yeah, they figure they're going to do the same thing with Kick that they did with Listen Like Thieves. So they're like, okay, you know, we're primed, we're ready. Let's go ahead, go and make this album. And again, they'd been touring for a whole year, so it took them a few months to make Kick. So the album peaked at number 11 on the U.S. Billboard 200 charts, but it was on the charts for, again, as we said, 2.5, almost 3 years. It featured the band's first top 5 single, What You Need. After the success, the band knew their next album would have to be better. According to guitarist and saxophonist Kirk Pengilly, we wanted an album where all the songs were possible singles. Toward the end of 1986, the band members gathered at the Sydney Opera House in Sydney, Australia, to rehearse the song, rehearsed the songs that Michael Hutchence and Andrew Ferris had written. In January of '87, INXS entered Rhinoceros Studios in Sydney to begin recording their 6th studio album, and the second with producer Chris Thomason. Nicholas was brought in to assist with the album's production. Nicholas co-owned Rhinoceros Records and had previously worked on the band on their 1982 album, Shaboo Shaboo, which is the one with Don't
Change.
Don't Change. Thank you. Don't Change. I couldn't think of the word. I was running the lyrics in my head. In their official 2005 autobiography, Nicholas recalled they were really a good feeling in the studio, and it was going to be something big. The band had just come off a really successful tour of the U.S. to back Listen Like Thieves, which really broke them there, and they were on fire. During production, management booked dates for the band's upcoming European tour, which proved to be a problem for Thomas, as he felt the album needed more songs. They had an incredible momentum building and were gaining fans all the time. But he was kind of stuck there waiting because they would have to go to Europe for a couple of weeks and then come back and record. Thomas persuaded primary songwriters Hutchence and Andrew Ferris to fly to Hong Kong, where Hutchence and drummer John Ferris owned an apartment, to write more material for the upcoming album. So Michael Hutchence and Andrew Ferris and John Ferris were in Europe. He would fly them back to Hong Kong because it's not really halfway, but at least part of the way to Australia, so they could write some more songs. Because he's like, you guys can't just do, you know, this. And I think it was about this time where they came up with the idea of Need You Tonight and Mediate. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I think this is the point where it's like, you know what we ought to do? We ought to do like a Queen thing, you know, like a We Will Rock You and We Are the Champions. We should do something like that. Which is, you know, you only get there from, you know, being on airplanes and lack of sleep. While waiting for a cab to go to the airport to fly to Hong Kong, Andrew thought up the guitar riff for Need You Tonight. He told the cab driver to wait a couple minutes while he went back to his motel room to grab something, when in fact he went back to record the riff on a cassette. The cab driver was really mad and returned the cab 45 minutes later. When Hutchence heard the demo in Hong Kong, he wrote the song's lyrics, writing most in just 10 minutes.
Wow.
The lyrics to Need You Tonight were written in 10 minutes. Oh my God. So Hutchence and Andrew returned to the recording sessions in Australia with a handful of demo tapes, including Need You Tonight, Kick, and Calling All Nations. Thomas knew that album was done when he heard the recordings and organized the last portion of the album's production. So they'd done everything else but Need You Tonight, Kick, and Calling All Nations.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and Mediate again. So certain songs that were recorded early in the production remain close to their demo counterparts, while others changed drastically. Originally, Never Tear Us Apart was a piano ballad having no orchestra structure at all. I've heard that with just a piano. It sounds better with the strings. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I've heard singer-songwriters do that song with just a piano. It's missing something. It's still a beautiful, beautiful song. But honestly, Never Tear Us Apart also needs that deep bass cut that you know what I'm talking about? Bum 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 do 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 boom 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 boom, where he's playing real high up on the bass's register. Almost like he's plucking it, like he's just twanging the crap out of that E string. So Kick, they tried to fuse some funk because they'd been working on that funk sound, and soul, which was kind of around the swing, and then Listen Like Thieves. And I think they kind of stumbled on it. Again, as we said, Guns in the Sky, New Sensation, Devil Inside, Need You Tonight, Mediate, The Loved One, Wildlife, Never Tear Us Apart, Mystify, Kick, Calling All Nations, and Tiny Daggers. That album clocks in at 39 minutes and 50 seconds.
Yeah, none of the songs are really long.
No, they're not. No, I don't think the single one goes over 3.5. Yeah, New Sensation goes 3 minutes, 39 seconds. Oh, Devil Inside is a little over 5 minutes. But it needs it because you got to get that drum build up, and then him playing down the doing those slide tricks on the guitar. But yeah, it's these 3 albums by them. They're just amazing. And you got to remember, too, that we're touring the whole time. So you've got 1984, 1985, and 1987. And they created masterpieces. Let's just say it. The Swing, less so, but Listen Like Thieves and Kick are masterpieces.
Right.
They are, well, again, masterpieces. Not only were they good music, they were really, really popular, which is kind of rare. You know, a lot of times, most of the popular music we have is kind of crap. It's kind of trash. But in this case, no, this was good stuff. But yeah, that's about it for those 3 albums: The Swing, Listen Like Thieves, and Kick. And again, if you were around in the mid-'80s, they were on the radio from 1986, which is late 85, early 86, to 1990. Every 10th song was an INXS song.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, easily. That's, so the Stupid Salad Bar album X was good. I don't think it was bad at all.
No, but it was a drop down from Kick. It just, like I said, to me, Kick is their best album. That's just to me. It definitely had the most hits on it. I mean, you heard all the songs everywhere.
Yes.
And it was just a great album. Yeah. I loved Kick. I loved the concert. I never regret that was my very first concert ever. I thought it was just awesome.
You should tell the story about how you bought the tickets.
Not a chance.
Oh, come on.
Not a chance on live air. Nope.
That's a funny story.
Yeah. No, that one will never be told to a live audience.
Right on. Okay. Folks, I tried.
Sorry.
But yeah, these 3 albums by INXS are pretty incredible. You guys should get out there and listen to them. If you go on our YouTube playlist, all 3 of those albums are completely listed out. I've got The Swing and Kick listed out as separate songs. Listen Like These is just one whole album.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's the way I listen to it. I basically listen to that A side, which has everything on it I want. I like the B side, but yeah, again, sides. For our listeners who don't know, on records you have one side with an amount of songs, and tapes even. Yes, Cree was pointing out that also tapes, and on the other side you've got the rest of the album. But yeah, that's about it for INXS and Swing, Listen Like Thieves, and Kick. And so yeah, that's it. Thank you for going on that trip with me.
Awesome, appreciate it. Appreciate you covering that. Like I said, INXS is one of my all-time favorites, especially Kick. So I've got pretty much that whole album in my playlist.
My thinking was, okay, I need to tell them we're doing the albums by INXS, and okay, you should probably listen Like Thieves and the Swing to kind of refamiliarize yourself. But I was like, dude, you don't need to listen to Kick. You know all the songs.
Yeah, I had to refamiliarize myself with the first two, but Kick, yeah, I know that by heart. I know the music, I know the lyrics. I'm fully well versed on Kick.
Nice.
Awesome. Appreciate that. Hopefully everybody takes some time to listen to those. As like I said, it's one of my favorites too. So with that, we'll take over on the murdery side of the house.
Murder.
And for today, I got my information off Baking a Murder blog, Wikipedia, Medium, Well Made Clothes Online Magazine, Investigation Discovery, and Grunge. And this is about the disappearance of Maura Murray.
The disappearance of Maura Murray.
Yeah, I actually
handmade clothes online.
Do what?
Did you say handmade clothes online? What was that?
No, well-made clothes online magazine.
Well-made clothes online. Okay.
Yep.
Thanks, sir.
Yep. I originally was going to do this for an exclusive, but I wanted to have this out for everybody, so I switched this out to episode 115 because I really think this one needs to be for everybody to hear.
Okay.
Maura Murray was born on May 4th, 1982 in Hanson, Massachusetts to parents Fred and Laura Murray. She had two older siblings and one younger brother, and she was the perfect middle child. But when she was 6, her parents divorced, and she primarily lived with her mother. She had a normal childhood. She excelled in academics and sports in high school, and she developed a love of the military. And after graduating from high school, she went on to the United States Military Academy in West Point. Okay. She ended up being there only for a year, but she studied chemical engineering. And while her short stint at the Army Academy, she got an itch. She got an itch to get an adrenaline rush, and was caught stealing only $5 worth of makeup. Instead of being expelled, they just forced her to transfer, and Maura transferred to the University of Massachusetts at Amherst, and she went to the nursing program there. In November of 2003, just 3 months before she went missing, she got into some more trouble. She began using stolen credit cards to purchase food, but it was to be dismissed after 3 months of good behavior. On February 5th, 2004, she was chatting on the phone with her sister. She was sitting in the front desk of her campus security job at UMass. They were chatting about the usual stuff when she suddenly broke down in tears, and her supervisor took notice. Her supervisor walked over, and she completely zoned out when asked what was wrong, and she was unresponsive. She did finish up her shift, though, and her supervisor walked her back to the dorm. And when she was asked what was wrong, she managed to mumble the words, "my sister." And her sister later in the media explained the contents of the call, that Kathleen, the sister, had just got released from rehab, and her fiance was taking her to the liquor store when they got in an argument, all while on the phone with Maura. On February 7th, Maura's father, Fred, came to visit her in Amherst. On the agenda was car shopping, and they followed it with dinner with one of Maura's friends. They were going car shopping because Maura's car was old. I believe it was a Saturn. And she really needed to get a newer car that was a little bit more reliable.
Yep. Yeah, the problem with those old Saturns is, after a certain time, you stop being able to get parts for them.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Great cars, but if you can't get parts, you can't fix them.
Yeah. So after dropping her father off at his hotel, Maura and her friend borrowed his car to go to a party later that night. And at 2:30 a.m., she left the party and drove his car with all intentions of returning it. But after an hour of driving, she hit a guardrail on the freeway in Hadley, causing nearly $10,000 in damage.
Oh.
When the police showed up, they didn't give her a sobriety test or file any charges. She was driven back to the motel by police officers, and that's where she slept. It said she woke up in the middle of the night to call her boyfriend from her father's phone and talk about what happened. But later in the wake of the disappearance, it's actually unknown who were the participants of the phone conversation. Later on Sunday morning, Fred Murray learned that the damage to his vehicle would be covered by his auto insurance. So he rented a car and dropped Maura off at the university, and then he departed for Connecticut. At 11:30 that night, Fred called his daughter to remind her to obtain accident forms from the Registry of Motor Vehicles, and they agreed to talk again Monday night to discuss the forms and fill out the insurance claims by a phone. Around midnight on Sunday, Maura used her personal computer to search for directions between the Berkshires and Burlington, Vermont. On Monday, Maura emailed her boyfriend saying, "I just got your message, but honestly, I didn't feel like talking to much of anyone. I promised to call today, though." At the same time, she called an apartment complex in Bartlett, New Hampshire, that her family and her spent a lot of time in her childhood, but she never rented the apartment. After the call, she also made an unknown calls to some nursing peers. And then she was getting really busy at this time because she also emailed her work supervisor, which was the same one who witnessed the breakdown. And she said that there was a death in the family and she needed to go home for a family emergency. Post disappearance, it did come out there was no death or no emergency in the family at the time she told her supervisor. An hour after her communication that she was going out of town for various reasons, she called some hotels in Stowe, Vermont, but it was just pre-recorded information she kept reaching. A few minutes after that, at 2:15 p.m., she reached out to her boyfriend once again and tells him that she'll contact him later on his voicemail. Maura then packed her car like she was going on vacation, but was definitely coming back to school. She packed her car with clothing, toiletry, birth control pills, and even her textbooks. What kind of person would bring their textbooks if they didn't plan on coming back to school, you know?
Yeah, it sounded like she was gonna take off at least for a few weeks and then come back.
Right.
Yeah.
Although she did pack all the essentials, post disappearance, the police searched her apartment and realized that her room was entirely packed up. All the posters were off, and most everything was in boxes like she was ready to move. And on top of the boxes was a printed email to Maura's boyfriend indicating trouble in their relationship.
Well, okay, unless she was going to sell the textbooks when she got to wherever she was going.
Yeah, that's a possibility.
Okay. I'm sorry, I'm with you.
No, that's fine. Around 3:30 p.m., she left campus in her black Saturn sedan. Shortly after that, she withdrew $280 from an ATM, which was close to her entire balance of her checking account, and closed circuit footage did show that she was alone. After emptying her account, she went to a liquor store and purchased about $40 worth of alcohol, including Bailey's, Kahlua, vodka, and a box of wine. Security footage again showed she was alone when she made those purchases. But at some point during the day, she did pick up the accident report forms from the Massachusetts Registry of Motor Vehicles. She left town after and headed up the 91 North, and her last known use of her phone was when she checked her voicemail at 4:37 p.m. during the car ride. A few members of the neighborhood in Woodsville, New Hampshire, heard a large crash outside, and there was a car that was pointed west on the eastbound road. The neighbor immediately called the cops to report an accident, and according to the 911 log, the woman claimed to have seen a man smoking a cigarette inside the car. However, she later stated that she had not seen a man nor a person smoking a cigarette, but rather what had appeared to be a red light glowing from inside the car, potentially from a cell phone. Another neighbor then saw the crash and reported someone walking around the car, and then yet another neighbor was said to have pulled up to the vehicle. A passing motorist, a school bus driver who lived nearby, stopped at the scene. They saw the car as well as a young woman walking around the vehicle. He noticed that she was not bleeding, but cold and shivering from being outside of her car, and he offered to call for help. She asked him not to call the police. One police report says pleaded, and assured him she had already called AAA, but AAA has no record of any such call. Knowing there was no cellular reception in the area, the bus driver continued home and called the police, and his call was received by the sheriff's department at 7:43 p.m. He was able to see Maura's car while he made the call, but did notice several cars passing by on the road before the police arrived. Another local resident driving home from work claims she passed by the scene around 7:37 p.m. and saw a police SUV parked face to face with Maura's car. She decided to pull. She pulled over briefly, and she didn't see anyone inside or outside the cars, and decided to continue home. This witness's statement contradicts the official police log, which Haverhill police have arriving 9 minutes later. When inspecting the car, the windshield was cracked, the doors were locked, and the airbags were deployed, but Maura was nowhere to be found. Inside and outside the car, the police discovered red stains that looked to be red wine. And inside the car, the officer found an empty beer bottle and a damaged box of Franzia wine on the rear seat. In addition, he found a AAA card that was issued to Murray, blank accident report forms, gloves, compact discs, makeup, diamond jewelry, driving directions to Burlington, Vermont, Maura's favorite stuffed animal, and Not Without Peril, a book about mountain climbing in the White Mountains. Everything she had brought with her for the trip was still accounted for in the car, except for her debit card, credit card, and cell phone, but none of these items have been used since the day of her disappearance.
Like she had those things on her.
Right.
Okay.
The police later reported that some of the bottles of purchased liquor were also missing.
Yeah, because there was no Kahlua and no Baileys.
Correct. Between 8 o'clock and 8:30 p.m., a contractor returning home from Franconia saw a young person moving quickly on foot eastbound on Route 112, about 4 to 5 miles east of where Maura's vehicle was discovered. He noticed that the young person was wearing jeans, a dark coat, and a light-colored hood. He did not report it to police immediately due to his own confusion of dates, only discovering 3 months later when reviewing his work records that he had spotted the young person the same night that Maura had disappeared. Little before it was learned about the woman walking on the freeway, the fire department came to clear the accident, and when towing the car, they found a rag stuffed in the tailpipe of the car. Which is a little weird, because there was a report that Maura's father taught her to do that to help the car with its problems. So I don't really understand that one.
Like it had an exhaust leak?
Yeah.
Stuffing up the rag kind of help with the leak?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Just weird.
A weird way to do that.
Very, very.
Because if you don't have an exhaust leak, your car's just going to die.
Exactly. The following day, a news report was issued for them to be on the lookout for Maura in the surrounding areas. The police then called her father and left a voicemail on his cell phone. But it wasn't until Maura's older sister called their father to tell him what was going on that he learned about everything. There seemed to be kind of a lack of urgency when he didn't hear from his daughter. It's kind of oddly suspicious. Since Murray was an adult, they had to wait one more day to begin an official search issued by state and local police, which, by the way, is not true. You don't have to wait one day. If someone is missing, they're missing.
Yeah, that's right. You don't have to wait at all.
No.
That's BS.
Yes. Meanwhile, though, the family did call the University of Massachusetts to issue a dorm search, and that's when they discovered everything was packed and everything removed off the walls. On February 11th, Maura's dad arrived in Haverhill to start for the start of the search. They started at 8 p.m. that night, and the police had dogs in hopes they would pick up a scent and lead them to her tracks. They traced a circumference of 100 yards around the car's location. A police dog tracked the scent from one of Maura's gloves 100 yards east from where the vehicle had been discovered, but then lost the scent. Police were determined that Maura was out there to disappear or commit suicide, but the family thinks different. They thought that Maura would never run away or commit suicide, no matter how much trouble she had encountered in the recent weeks. Maura's boyfriend did show up and was right there with the family searching. It was discovered that he was on a plane with his phone turned off at the time of the disappearance, but he did have one call and voicemail during the flight. It was an unknown number, but he knew he recognized the voice on the voicemail. He said that it was Maura sobbing. They traced the call back to a card used to make a call at the American Red Cross, but the voicemail had been deleted. Not sure why or how they could let them delete it, but it was way gone by that point. On February 12th, the family decided to have a press conference. In Bethlehem, New Hampshire, Maura's father and boyfriend spoke to the news asking for help and if anyone knew anything about Maura's disappearance. Police spoke out again that they were concerned that she vanished because she was upset or committed suicide. And usually when you have a missing person, it's just local and state police, but the FBI was brought in 10 days later after Maura's car was discovered. And not only did the FBI get involved, but the Fish and Game team got involved. They brought in cadaver dogs and issued an air search of the surrounding areas.
Well, I could see the FBI being called in because she did cross the state line. Right? She went from Massachusetts to New Hampshire?
Yeah, but she only disappeared in New Hampshire, so that's not really there's no crossing state line law involved there. So, but anyway, they did get involved. So,
yay, FBI.
During the search, Maura's sister found a pair of ripped underwear lying in the snow in one of the trails in the wooded areas. It was sent in for DNA tests, but unfortunately didn't come back as a match to Maura. But after this, a lot of searchers were coming up empty with dead ends. At the end of February, the police returned all the items they took in for testing from her car to her family, and her family packed up and checked out of the hotel, but her father returned every single weekend to look for her. He was so persistent, he was even accused of trespassing on private property while he was searching. A week after Maura's disappearance, her father and boyfriend were interviewed by CNN's American Morning. The Murray family expanded their search into Vermont, dismayed that authorities there had not been informed of her disappearance. When the man who saw a young woman running on the highway realized that the dates that the dates of the incident and Maura's disappearance were actually the same day, that's when he contacted the police, and the police then issued another air search of the area, but no leads came from it. There's a lot of speculations that came about from her disappearance, one being that she wanted to make herself disappear due to her improper use of credit cards.
That was my first thought.
Yeah. 2 accidents so close together involving alcohol, and just 3 months after her dismissal from the Army Academy. Her family completely disagrees. No matter what trouble she was in, they know her and feel that she would not just disappear. On July 1st, 2004, police retrieved the items found in Murray's vehicle from her family for forensic analysis. And on July 13th, a 1-mile radius search was performed by nearly 100 searchers, including state troopers, rescue personnel, and volunteers. It was the 4th search around the crash area and the first search performed without snow on the ground. Authorities were most interested in locating the black backpack Murray had in her possession but not found in her car. Police stated the search discovered nothing conclusive. A semi-break came in the case in 2004. Towards the end of it, a man allegedly gave Maura's father a rusty stained knife that belonged to the man's brother, who had a criminal past and lived less than a mile from where the car was discovered. His brother and his brother's girlfriend were said to have acted strangely after the disappearance, and the man's brother claimed he believed the knife had been used to kill Maura. Several days after the knife was given to Maura's father, the man's brother allegedly scrapped his Volvo. Family members of the man who turned in the knife claimed he had made up the story in order to obtain reward money in the investigation, that he had a history of drug use. On the anniversary of the disappearance, a service was held where they found the car. It was then police realized this was obviously not some random disappearance, and then took back the items originally took from the car and returned to the parents. They issued another search, but nothing came during it again. Now Maura's family was getting restless and demanding more information from the police. Mm-hmm. Maura's father even filed a suit against the police to gain access to the files they had for Maura. And after this, a special team from the Molly Bish Foundation was put together to get involved in the case. They knew this wasn't just a missing persons incident. She didn't disappear since she was not using any of her bank cards or cell phone, and they knew something ominous had happened to her. On November 1st, 2005, a user named, quote, Tom Davies logged into a message board called Not Without Peril, which was dedicated to discussion of Maura's disappearance, and claimed to have seen a black backpack behind a restroom at Pemigewasset Overlook, around 30 miles east of Woodsville on Route 112, and Murray had owned the black backpack. Senior Assistant Attorney General Geoffrey Strelzin stated that law enforcement was aware of the backpack but didn't disclose whether it had been taken for forensics evidence. The New Hampshire League of Investigators, which is 10 retired police officers and detectives, and the Molly Bish Foundation started working on the case in 2006. Tom Shamshak, a former police chief and member of the Licensed Private Detective Association of Massachusetts, said, quote, "It appears this is something beyond a mere person's case. Something ominous could have happened here." The Arkansas group Let's Bring Them Home offered a $75,000 reward in 2007 for information that could solve her disappearance. In October of 2006, volunteers led a 2-day search within a few miles where Maura's car was found. And in the closet of an A-frame house approximately 1 mile from the crash site, cadaver dogs allegedly went bonkers, possibly identifying the presence of human remains. The house had formerly been in the residence of the man implicated by his brother, who had given Fred Murray the rusty knife in 2004. A sample of the carpet from the home was sent to the New Hampshire State Police, but results were never released to the public. Then again, in 2008, they brought out more dogs to search the forest and the surrounding areas, but nothing turned up. And in 2014, on the 10th anniversary of Maura's disappearance, Strelzin stated, quote, "We haven't had any credible sightings of Maura since the night she disappeared." In an article published in the New York Daily News on the 10th anniversary of his daughter's disappearance, it was reported that Fred Murray believed she was dead and had been abducted in the night of her disappearance. On February 9th, 2017, the 13th anniversary of Maura's disappearance, Strelzin wrote an email to the Boston Globe, quote, "It's still an open case with periods of activity, and at times it goes dormant. There are no new updates to share at this time." February 2019, which was the 15th anniversary of Maura's disappearance, Fred Murray reiterated his belief that his daughter was dead, as well as his suspicions about the nearby house that cadaver dogs responded to, stating, quote, "That's my daughter, I do believe." In early April of 2019, excavation was done within the basement of the house. Fred Murray had previously wanted to search the home, but the owners did not cooperate. Following the sale of the property, the new owners allowed several searches of the property since February, and the excavation concluded in early April found absolutely nothing other than what appeared to be a piece of pottery or old piping. On September 14th, 2021, New Hampshire State Police announced that bone fragments, including part of a skull, had been found on Loon Mountain in Lincoln, New Hampshire, approximately 25 miles east of the site of Maura's crash. Maura had been to the mountain before, and she had knowledge of the area, according to her sister. The bone fragments were described as pretty small, and it was expected to take at least 2 months to determine if they were the remains of Maura or not. But in November, it was announced that the remains were not Maura's. In January of 2022, the FBI issued a national alert in Maura's case and created a violent criminal apprehension profile, allowing multiple law enforcement agencies to share information regarding her case. And in July of 2022, law enforcement in New Hampshire initiated a search in the towns of Llandaff and Easton. The disappearance of Maura Murray's final episode revealed that traces of human blood were found at the A-frame house near the crash site. Chuck West of the New Hampshire Cold Case Unit told Oxygen that because the sample from the wood chips was so degraded, it would be impossible for them to identify if it belonged to Maura or not. West did confirm that they were going to re-examine the case, and the police have already established 3 task forces. Since this case is so mysterious that many people in the true crime community have helped shed light on Maura and her disappearance, there have been numerous podcasts, documentary, and articles written about her. Maura's disappearance has been cited as the first crime mystery of the social media age and generated speculation from the media and public, specifically on the internet and online forums and message boards. Writing for Boston Magazine in 2014, Bill Jensen noted, quote, "Now, at least online, it often seems there's no such thing as a cold case. But when Maura Murray disappeared, the social web was in its infancy. There was no YouTube and no Twitter. On the day Maura went missing, Facebook was 5 days old. So you can read the history of her case as a parable about the evolution of online sleuthing." In 2005, active discussion of Maura's disappearance was documented on websleuths.com. And in 2007, Facebook and MySpace pages were created dedicated to helping find her. There's some theories on what happened. Some people believe Maura may have arranged her own disappearance because she was pregnant. Author James Renner, who wrote a book about Maura's case, suspects she may have used an underground system to leave the country and is likely living in Canada. And although she didn't have any money, some people have suggested she could have used the $4,000 she got from her father. The prevailing theory is that Maura was abducted by either an opportunistic predator or a serial killer. Fred Murray believes someone locally who knows the area, knows where to go, and knows how to get into some place and out of some place without being seen, and that his daughter was abducted. In an interview with WCVB, Fred admitted that he still visits the site of his daughter's crash. The Murray family and some residents near the crime scene have criticized local authorities for their failure to thoroughly investigate Maura's disappearance. And in another interview with WCV, Murray said the police were initially on the scene for fewer than 2 hours.
Barney Fife.
Yeah.
Yay.
He also thinks they waited too long to conduct a thorough search of the surrounding area. And as reported by WCVB, local resident Gene Foley said that authorities did not search for Murray along the roadway during the daylight hours for several days, and then she never saw anyone search the area in the days following the crash.
It's Vermont in the wintertime.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you search the road? Someone could freeze to death.
Yeah. Fred said that if his daughter were still alive, she would have called someone in the family or one of her friends to let them know she's safe. And at this point, he simply wants to know what happened to Maura and who did it. Anyone with information about Maura Murray is urged to call the New Hampshire Cold Case Unit at 603-223-3856. And that is the story of the disappearance of Maura Murray.
If you see something, say something.
Right, right.
Well, thank you for that information, sir. Appreciate that story. That's kind of a mystery there.
Yeah, and interesting that it was really kind of the first cold case of the social media age.
I'm glad you put this on our regular channel instead of just our patrons.
Yeah, and that's why exclusive. Well, that's why I switched it off the exclusive. I thought that one needed a broader audience.
Right on. Well, thank you, sir.
Awesome. Thank you. And thank you for joining me for another week of the Nerd and the Murd, the good and the bad and the up and the down.
Sweet.
As always, you can find information on what we talked about today on our website, nerdanddmurder.com. There you'll find links and pictures of the things we talked about, as well as links to our YouTube page where Zig puts many, many videos.
Yes, there will eventually. We are starting to put our videos of our episodes up now. In connection to our playlists, which we have a playlist for every episode. So if you want to see how the soup is made, you can kind of see it.
Awesome. Appreciate that.
Thank you, sir.
On our webpage, you can also find the link to our merchandise, where if you wish to show off your Nerd and Murd fandom, please do consider purchasing one of the things we have for sale there. And also, you can find the link to our Patreon, where if you wish to become a patron to the show along with our merchandise, our patrons do help us support the show. There are costs that are associated with the show. It does not go to our mansions or to our luxurious vacations or our Lamborghinis.
Please and thank you.
Please and thank you. We do appreciate you. And as always, please don't forget to leave a 5-star review wherever you can. It really helps us and helps others find us that may be looking for the content that we are producing. So with that,
I have been Zig with your nerdery.
And I'm Geoffrey with your murdery.
Cue the music.